Welcome to Common Censored. I am Lee Camp, joined as always by Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello, hello.
I host the show Redacted Night. She hosts the show Act Out. And together we make Common Censored, which is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
And sometimes other stuff.
And sometimes other stuff such as we've been arguing over what I should be for Halloween, which you had a good recommendation
Okay.
of Edgar Allan Poe.
Follow me on this, folks. Lee's argument was that Edgar Allan Poe was not as attractive as Lee. I agree, but that's not the point.
Hold on, whoa.
The
Saying
point-
it like that sounds like I'm an asshole. I said,
The
I did not
point
say
of
that.
Halloween-
I said Edgar Allan Poe is ugly as balls. All right, that's what I said.
The point of Halloween
He's
is not
got
to be
like one eye
attractive.
over here, one eye over there.
The point of Halloween is not to be attractive, okay? The point of Halloween is to do the least amount of work and be interesting.
But my rebut was
So you've already got
that
the long black hair and the beard. All you need is a fucking puffy
That's
shirt and
like-
a crow on your shoulder, and you're there.
That's like me telling you to dress up as Steve Buscemi, all right? It's really
I
not.
look nothing like Steve Buscemi.
And you should be thankful for that.
You have the same hair and facial hair as Edgar Allan Poe, okay? I'm just saying.
I have at least 2 fewer eyeballs than he had, as I recall.
Wow, what pictures have you seen?
No, I like the idea of the crow on the shoulder. Although then we got into an argument as to how easy it is to find a dead crow.
It's really not that hard.
I feel like you hoard them under your bed or something because you seem to think there were just dead crows everywhere.
Do you not? I'm just saying.
You think every store carries laminated crows.
Laminated. I believe they called those taxidermied. But
Well,
sure.
I would just laminate a dead one. Does that not count?
You have a laminating machine? Because I could use that
Yeah,
for
the
some
problem is
projects.
it only fits pieces of paper, so you'd have to really squish that crow down.
Well, that's on you. But I have some name tags I gotta make, so if I could borrow that.
Yeah, you can definitely borrow that. And fake IDs as well. So it was either Edgar Allan Poe, some people have thrown in the idea of Che, and then I was saying Wolverine.
Boring. Everybody's gonna be fucking Wolverine. Are you kidding me? That's so boring.
Yeah, but I'd get to, like, have some weird facial hair.
The whole point of the facial hair is that you can be Edgar Allan Poe. Come on. I mean, you're really just chucking these good
All
opportunities.
right. And fun fact, Edgar Allan Poe lived like 2 doors away from me on the main, it's called the Lawn. It's the main area at University of Virginia. Not
Same time.
at the same time. Different times. Apparently, Edgar Allan Poe was so poor at the time that he, and I think that, did they kick him out? I think he quit, but he was,
Quit? Is that what they call it?
I don't think he was kicked out. I think he quit college, but he was,
Dropped out.
or maybe graduate student, but whatever he was, he walked away. But he apparently was so poor at the time that, these rooms, and they still to this day have fireplaces, working fireplaces, and he apparently was breaking his furniture. The university gave him wooden furniture. He broke it apart and was burning it. So they didn't like that.
So you followed suit.
Followed suit. There was a lot of pissing in the sinks at those college rooms, though, because we didn't have a bathroom. So
I don't. What do you mean you didn't have a bathroom?
because they're considered like the old-timey Jefferson-built rooms. There's no.
So where
there's
did
no
you-
bathrooms. The sink.
When you weren't shit-faced and pissing in the sink, where did you go?
Oh, there was a bathroom like a half mile away somewhere.
So you did shower during your 4 years at college.
You can call it showering. I call it splashing sink water onto my face.
God, I'm
but-
so glad I met you after the fact.
All right, let's get into this. We got to talk about, and look, there's a couple of stories in this episode that I may end up talking about on Redacted tonight because they're too juicy, they're too hilarious yet infuriating at the same time. So I don't know if I'm going to be a double dipping here on the stories, but
It's well worth it.
It's well worth it. This one with Tulsi Gabbard, which I'm sure some of you had followed, is truly fucking. it has everything in it. It's got infuriating, totally fucking set your hair on fire, angering comments from Hillary Clinton. Then it's got Tulsi Gabbard standing up and fucking swinging for the fences like we have not seen yet, standing up against the Democratic elite. Then it's got trashing the Democratic elite, trashing third parties, trashing Jill Stein. It's really got it all. And there's been this whole back and forth on Twitter, which I try not to follow. But so I'm going to give you some of what happened here. Let's start with Hillary's comments, which I have been lazy enough to not look up where she said these comments, but they were in the past couple of days. And she said, so she's talking about the Russians. And she still believes that Donald Trump is the Russian candidate, despite the fact that the Mueller report has collapsed, despite the fact that Trump has been harder on Russia than previous presidents in terms of he's kicked out more diplomats, he's put more sanctions on them. He has really been a shit fest for Russia. So Russia does not love Trump. I know people like to say that because it's what the Democrats have put in their head, but it's just not true. And let's keep in mind, Ukraine is not Russia. So when they keep saying that, Giuliani was working with Ukrainians and all this shit.
These names sound Russian.
These are two separate countries. Furthermore, we installed our own American fucking people. They're not Americans, but they're American-backed people in the Ukraine. So now the Ukraine is supposed to be an American puppet government.
Right.
So anyway, I just want to make that clear. So then Hillary is saying that the Russians clearly want Trump, and here's where the quote begins. They're also going to do third party again. I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye on someone who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her, keyword her, to be the third party candidate. Now, she's 100% clearly talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and we'll get back to that in a second. Here's where the quote continues. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. And then this is where Jill Stein comes in. That's assuming Jill Stein will give it up. By the way, Jill Stein.
What the fuck does that mean?
By the way, Jill Stein not running. The Green Party convention where they have had their presidential debates, have had some presidential debates already going on. Jill Stein is not in them and is not running.
And I don't know what give it up means.
Not run again.
But she's already not doing that.
I know. Hillary is beyond gone. She's an Alzheimer's patient on the level of Biden. Like they're all just losing their goddamn minds. So, all right, I'm going to continue the quote here. That's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not because she's also a Russian asset. Yeah, she's a Russian asset. I mean, totally. They know they can't.
I mean, totally. What is this? Clueless?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, literally, but.
Continuing the quote, they know they can't win without a third-party candidate. So I don't know who it's going to be, but I will guarantee you they will have a vigorous third-party challenge in key states that they most needed. All right. Hillary Clinton is achieving many things here. She's trashing Tulsi Gabbard as a Russian asset. She's trashing Jill Stein as a Russian asset because she still hates Jill Stein for the last election, which we've already discussed the fact that Jill Stein did not stop Hillary from becoming president.
Well, just real quick on that point, when people say you stole votes from Hillary Clinton, you can't steal something unless somebody already owns it, which presupposes that Hillary Clinton or any Democratic candidate owns your fucking vote. Just step back for a second and think about how fucked up that is to imagine. Then why bother going to the polls at all if the Democrat already owns your fucking vote? And then furthermore, many of the people that vote Green would never vote for a Democratic candidate.
Not just in general. They did polling after the election, and the people that voted for Jill Stein would have half, if she weren't in the race or there were no Green Party in the race, would have a third voted for Hillary Clinton, a third voted for Trump, and a third stayed home.
Yeah.
It would not have changed the election.
No.
However, many things did change the election, such as interstate cross-check and a million other voter suppression and voter fraud ways, which the Democrats will not
the Russians.
discuss. Not the Russians. Sorry, not the Russians.
Still not the Russians.
Sorry, still not the Russians. And you're welcome to be like, oh, Lee, you're at RT, you're fucking lying.
I'm not.
Go look at all the people that aren't at RT. Eleanor's not at RT. Max Blumenthal's not not at RT. Aaron Mate, not at RT. There's plenty of people. Gray Zone, Mint Press, plenty of amazing journalists have discussed this and covered it. Jill Stein, not at RT.
And at the
Code Pink, not at RT.
The very, very core of this subject, proof. So with anything that we believe, right? Anything that we say is correct, and yes, I stand by this, you have proof, okay? So anybody that says, and I've had this conversation with friends that are, intellectuals, but they've fallen for this too. And then when I ask them, and this is not because I have all the answers, it's just because I've been studying this a lot, right? I've written lots of articles. I've basically been researching this for the past 2 years, along with a lot of other alternative journalists and activists. And the bottom line here is there's no proof. Okay, and we can keep coming back to this, but the basic thing is that people have been hearing it through the grapevine. Oh, well, all of these outlets are saying the same thing. I mean, there's collusion. Even if we accept the Mueller report, there's still got to be collusion. What does that mean? No, then you obviously aren't accepting the findings of that report, and you're also not basing this on anything other than hearsay. So at the very foundation of this, regardless of what Lee says, regardless of what I say, go find proof. And if somebody sends us proof, if you can fucking show me something other than Jesus arm wrestling the devil, which got $2 on Facebook that not even like their own mother saw, if you can show me any valid proof, okay, fine, I will backpedal my stance. But until that fucking happens, I will continue to say what I have been saying, which is we fuck up our elections. We are the undemocratic fucking city upon a hill, not the Russians.
And ironically, Hillary Clinton and the DNC apparatus majorly fucked up, defrauded, rigged the DNC primaries. And so when she says, they're trying to fuck up our elections, no, she and the DNC heavily fucked up our elections.
And are doing it again. But that's it, yeah.
And are doing it again. So she's trashing Jill Stein. By the way, Jill Stein, not a Russian asset. Jill Stein has no connection to Russia. I know Jill Stein, no connection to Russia other than the one fucking event, RT's 10th anniversary that she went to in Russia, Moscow, to try. She literally going there said she was going there to try and meet with Putin to discuss nuclear proliferation, which guess what? World leaders, if she were a major party leader, and just because she's a third party doesn't mean she can't do this, you should meet with other leaders. You should want to meet with other leaders. So her saying she wanted to do that.
Particularly when it has to do with like, hey, could we not blow each other up and create a nuclear winter that spans the entire breadth of the entire world? So
exactly. So her saying she wanted to do that, and that's why she went there, which is absolutely true. That should be something we should all celebrate and we should all want. Honestly, this is so infuriating, libelous. It's disgusting what Hillary Clinton's doing. Go ahead.
Just real quick, like this reminds me of when people say, "Oh, the climate chaos folks or the climate justice folks are just they're." It's special interests that are driving them, and it's all a hoax, and they're just trying to get their point across, and they're just trying to take over the, our industry. And it's like, well, let's say that that's true. They want to give us clean water?
Yeah.
So hypothetically, let's say that Putin had talked to Jill Stein, not that this is true, but let's hypothetically say that that's true, and he was like, hey, I think that you should come out with a legitimate Green New Deal that talks about just transition and reparations and actual progress in this capitalist shitstorm of your country and mine. Well then, yeah, that's fucking cool. But of course, that's not what Putin says, because if you actually look at Putin's own his own policies, he is an absolute capitalist.
Right.
He would not agree with Jill Stein on like 99.9% of issues.
And that's what
the idea that she would be a Russian asset is absurd, because they disagree on almost everything.
Well, and that's what they don't want Americans to know, is that the government of Russia is capitalist. And they want you to keep conflating it with the communist regime from years ago. And a lot of Americans are not really informed enough to know there's a difference. And so they just think, oh my God, Red Russia is trying to take us over. But anyway, let's move. Let's continue.
Sorry, we have derailed a bit here.
Not really. It's important stuff, but we're getting into a lot of it.
A lot of passion here.
I like your passion. So let's go back to the initial. Oh, and by the way, quick, Jill Stein gave a response to that, saying, that Hillary Clinton she challenged Hillary Clinton to a legitimate debate because she said the people of America never got this in 2016, and I challenge you to a debate because you are continuing, to fucking muddy my name with your bullshit claims. All right. So now let's go to the primary or initial accusation, which is basically calling Tulsi Gabbard a Russian agent. Now, there's something that most of you probably already understand, which is why Tulsi Gabbard is more despised by the DNC apparatus, the DNC elite, than they even despise Bernie Sanders. They fucking hate Bernie Sanders, and they want to sink him, number one. Number two, they want to sink Elizabeth Warren on a much lighter level just because she's going to break up the banks, but in most other things, they pretty much...
she says she wants to.
She says she wants to, but she's pretty similar to Obama in a lot of ways, and so they feel like they can largely control her. I think they would much prefer to have a Biden in there or like a Kamala Harris, but they'll take an Elizabeth Warren if that's their only choice against Bernie Sanders. Now, down at polling much lower, although I know these polls are manipulated, but polling lower than them is Tulsi Gabbard. They fucking hate Tulsi Gabbard on a level that is not equivalent to Bernie Sanders, because Tulsi Gabbard is far more going at the military-industrial complex. Now, you can argue that Bernie is better on a lot of subjects, and he is. But in terms of military-industrial complex, that is Tulsi's thing. She has staked out that ground to go after the military-industrial complex, our endless wars. And as we're seeing with Syria right now, which is going to be our next topic here in a minute, as we're seeing with Syria right now, the thing that most infuriates our government, our media that supports our government as a whole is ever having any kind of withdrawal or peace anywhere. The possible peace with North Korea infuriated them. It was Chuck Schumer called the possible peace with North Korea when Donald Trump met with Kim Jong-un. He called it the most shameful day in our foreign policy's history in America. So the threat of peace is horrifying to them. So they hate Tulsi Gabbard. She's a veteran. She's a woman of color, and she's going after the military-industrial complex. Now, it's not to say everything she believes is everything I believe, but on these topics, it's important to understand what she's been doing that made them so angry. So then let me get to Tulsi's response, which is... Do you want to do the honors?
No, please. I want to listen.
You seem pretty excited.
I just want to listen. It's so beautiful.
Tulsi responded. Let's see if I should go through. Yeah, I should go through the whole thing. She wrote, great.
Don't give us the abridged version.
She wrote, great. Thank you, Hillary Clinton. You, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption and personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long, have finally come out from behind the curtain. From the day I announced my candidacy, there has been a concerted campaign to destroy my reputation. We wondered who was behind it and why. Now we know. It was always you through your proxies and powerful allies in the corporate media and war machine, afraid of the threat I pose. It's now clear that this primary is between you and me. I don't know about that part, but it's between you and me. Don't cowardly hide behind your proxies. Join the race directly. So basically challenging her to a debate and challenging her to an actual discussion on this. But these are not... Tulsi Gabbard has not done this particularly. She's called out the war machine. She is... that I've seen, maybe I don't watch everything she says, maybe I missed something, but she's not gone after specific DNC powerful people saying you are warmongers. And I think that this is a incredible step in the right direction in a powerful way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you put it this way earlier. You said she's actually swinging for the fences, which is, I mean, it's the bottom of the ninth inning, and so you might as well just fucking go for it because this, I mean, Clinton is, and which is exactly why she lost in 2016, because she represents that rot of the DNC. She represents the dynastic corruption of the Democratic Party, and Tulsi Gabbard is actually calling that out, whereas even Bernie would kind of like pussyfoot around it. He would be like, oh, well, you know, Clinton has been a part of all of these awkward situations, and it's like, yeah, she's fucking corrupt, and the whole entire fucking system is corrupt, and DNC is the poster poster child of this eloquent corruption.
And because of her power, none of the other candidates would be caught dead calling her corrupt.
Well, and that's the other thing is that, I mean, I'm not sure what she's exactly talking about with regards to the proxies, but there have been several reports coming out recently that Elizabeth Warren has been meeting with Hillary Clinton, and that basically
Elizabeth Warren endorsed Hillary in the last
yeah.
round. I mean, they're not foreign from each other.
No, and the thing that people oftentimes kind of, because for some reason every time there's an election we have the attention spans of goldfish, and we seem to forget the fact that Elizabeth Warren has been very conservative and has been very fucking tone deaf on a lot of issues, and only came up with these brilliant ideas to break up digital monopolies like Facebook when she was already considered to be the quote unquote progressive candidate. Well, where were those ideas?
Facebook is an easy kicking bag right now.
Sure, but where were
punching bag, kicking sack?
Kicking sack?
Kicking the
kicking sack. Oh.
No, punching bag.
That sounds rough. I don't even have one, and that sounds rough. But so I mean, there's this definite feeling that Warren is only like a progressive facade, whereas Bernie, not entirely, particularly with regards to foreign policy, but whereas Bernie has actually...
He has 30 years of record.
He has walked the walk with regards to that progressive domestic policy, and Elizabeth Warren hasn't.
And Bernie has proven he can go against the Democratic establishment, not every time, and those who despise him for endorsing Hillary last time will be, are you fucking kidding me? They'd be losing their mind right now. But he's proven in many spots here and there that he is willing to, declare himself an independent and go at the Democratic establishment, whereas Warren has never proven that. No. Warren has fallen in line with the Democratic establishment in just about everything I've seen.
Yeah. Particularly with regards to wars, so that's another way that she completely veers off the path from somebody like Tulsi Gabbard. So, yeah,
So this is a big moment, and there's been tons of back and forth, but I see what Tulsi's saying. Tulsi has been trashed in our media. They won't even mention her name. They don't mention Bernie's name much, but they mention Tulsi even less.
They've censored her online. Like what was it after the first two debates?
So after the first two debates, she was the most researched or most searched,
Googled.
Yeah, most Googled candidate, and Google then deactivated her ad dollars so that when you searched her, it wouldn't say donate to Tulsi Gabbard. Deactivated her ad dollars, and what I don't hear a lot of people mentioning is that Google, since 2015, has been heavily in bed with Hillary Clinton. The guy who headed Google left Google to create, I can't remember the name of it, but a fucking organization designed to just get Hillary elected. Like, Google is full-on pro-Hillary all day long, and then they're deactivating Tulsi's ads so that she can't get donations when she is the most Googled candidate after the first two debates. So Google's in bed with Hillary. Hillary now is, trashing Tulsi Gabbard. Other media reports that were just laughable at the time they came out have trashed Tulsi Gabbard. So this is it's a big development, and it's super fascinating to see any mainstream Democrat, and by that I mean Tulsi Gabbard in the sense that she is in Congress, any elected Democratic federal official come out against the DNC. It just almost never happens. So this is a big moment.
And I mean, kind of the question that floated into my mind when I read this was, why do you think she's doing this?
Because I think she's seeing the writing on the wall that she's not going to get the kind of standard Democratic support. Instead, they're going to, even if she were to start doing better, they're going to undermine her at and not just undermine her. I mean, they are calling her a fucking Assad apologist, a Russian, just maligning her every chance they get, to like trashing her in a horrible way. And that's different than just saying, I disagree with her policies.
Right.
That is much more libelous and a terrible way of just going after someone. And also, here's the last thing, is I think Hillary is still sitting in the wings thinking that if Biden implodes, if it's between Warren and Sanders, the establishment could be like, hey, Hillary, there's still time to get on these caucuses and primaries.
She comes out in the third act and is like, I'm here to save the day.
Dude, could you imagine how fucking people would flip the fuck out. She would lose so bad. She would lose worse than she lost last time.
But here's the thing, and this is the other point, is that like I remember Nick Brana, who's the founder of Movement for a People's Party, was saying that, one of the things that Bernie had said when confronted with the idea that the Democrats would steal the primary from him again, his response was they wouldn't dare.
Yeah,
That means that he acknowledges that it fucking happened the first time and he said nothing about it.
Right.
And B, it means that he's super fucking naive. But here's the thing. Of course they would do that to Tulsi as well.
Right.
So if this tweet and further momentum from this debate, possibly like another one, brings her to the point where she's actually a viable candidate, you bet your ass they will fucking keep her from those primaries.
Yep.
And this is like what's so vital is it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't matter unless we say you can't steal it. Because if we say that, like, no, actually we do want one of these candidates that are, either vehemently anti-war or has great domestic policy, then of course, then they'll just steal it, and then we'll get 4 more years of Trump, and that's the end of the story. So the bottom line here, which is really the bottom line of any fucking issue that we talk about, is what is the response of the people? If the people demand and say that actually, no, you can't fucking steal this from us, we refuse to be, these passive pawns in your game, well, then the whole situation gets more interesting, doesn't it? But if we're just going to kind of watch this happen again, well, then, I can tell you who's going to win in 2020.
And final note, let's remember that the DNC claimed in court that they have a right to rig their own primaries, and they have no obligation to the people who have voted for or funded the DNC to give them a fair primary. So what's to stop them? They've said in court, this is what we do. We rig the primary. What's there to stop them? Except the only thing that could stop them is a lot of people standing up and demanding better. And by the way, we only spent a minute on how fucking repulsive it is to trash third parties when in fact undoing the corruption and the death spiral that America's in right now, the late stage capitalism, inequality beyond all recognition, climate change cliff we're running off of. It needs to come from third parties, or at least outside people. It's not going to come from these two corporate parties.
Well, and again, looping back to that idea that you're stealing votes, which presupposes that your votes belong to one of the two main parties, and just think about how does that make you?
Let's say two corporate parties.
How does that make you feel in the land of the free, folks? So just think about, like, how does that make your freedom, your democracy feel when your vote already belongs to one of the basically one party?
Yeah, so before we get into Syria, which, considering we're talking about Tulsi Gabbard's anti-war stance, will be an easy segue. But quick note here, this show is kept afloat. It's kept going by you, by no one else. There are no ads. We don't advertise anything. We don't tell you to buy vitamin supplements that will make your nips hairy. I
did tell you to get a laminated crow, though.
That's true. We are brought to you today by Laminated Crows. If you find a bird on your porch that has passed on, please laminate it with Gill's Lamination of Birds machine.
And mail it to Lee.
And mail it to me. That is as many dead laminated birds as possible. That's a whole costume of in and of itself.
'Tis the season.
But you guys are the ones that make this possible. Patreon.com/Common Censored. Patreon.com/Common Censored. Yes, I said it twice. That wasn't a glitch in the audio. But if you become a member over there, we give you extra content every week, pretty much, and extra 15 minutes episode every week. And last time, I'm going to say it, patreon.com/Common Censored. Okay, and thank you to all the new supporters we've gained over there. You guys are incredible. So we got to get back to Syria here, because watching our mainstream media's goddamn faces melt off as they are just horrified that the United States troops would ever leave anywhere. And this is not to celebrate or say that any civilian deaths are okay, but what they're leaving out and the propaganda they're pushing in this discussion of what's happening in Syria is so goddamn repulsive. It honestly, it's hit a new level in certain respects. And do you want to talk about this footage that has come out that's truly incredible?
Okay, so there's footage, and I can't remember the exact.
ABC News.
ABC News.
ABC News aired it. David Murr, David Murr, I think, is the host's name.
Okay, so, okay. So anyone who's ever shot guns will probably notice that there's something a little bit awry about this footage to begin with. But so basically what happened is that along with all of corporate media, wanted to show the horrors of what was going on with Syria because we pulled our troops out. You know, it's the U.S.'s fault because we left, and now look at the mayhem because we're not there to guard these people, right?
To guard the part of Syria we apparently own now. They
exactly.
act like it's ours.
Well, I'm sorry, Lee. I don't know if you know this, but we own the globe. So
yeah.
If you spin the globe anywhere your finger lands, we own that.
Well,
so.
Especially the skies for our drones, because 1492 Columbus claimed the sky so blue for the United States.
For the United States.
Yeah.
That's the new rhyme, folks. So basically, they showed this footage, which is
of Turkey invading Syria.
Yeah, of Syria. So it's supposedly Syria, and it's just like these fireballs going off.
But Turkey invading Syria.
Right.
This is supposed to be the coverage of
yes.
Turkish invasion.
Turkish forces just going to just wailing on Syria. And you see these fire bombs, you see
bullets through the air.
Well, you see bullets through the air.
Well, we'll get to that point in a second.
Okay, we'll get to that point in a second. But then, I don't know who it was, but somebody found that this footage was from a gun show demonstration in Kentucky in 2016. I'll say that again because I think it needs to be repeated. The footage of Turkey slaughtering Kurds in a Syrian border village is actually from a Kentucky gun show in 2016.
And here are the hints that clearly tip this person off to the fact this footage might not be genuine. Most of what's going on that before the possible ceasefire, who knows what's going on with that, but most of what was going on was people fleeing without bullets or anything, just they were fleeing because they knew that Turkey was threatening to come, and some bombing. And the bombing that was going on would look like, if you saw video of it, it would look like bombs landing. It would look like a puff of smoke and a building being hit. Instead, this was not that. This was massive explosions in the middle of a firefight with guns. And so someone was like, what are they shooting at that is exploding? Like, yes, occasionally there's an explosion in a firefight, but what is this firefight that's going on and things just blowing up? And furthermore, someone who really knows a little more about guns might be wondering why you can see the bullets fly through the air. This is at night. It's dark. It's pitch black. So you can see light traces going through the air. And bullets don't look like that.
No,
they don't show up in the dark.
Bullets they're not fucking iridescent. They're not glow in the dark.
They're not glow in the dark. They don't have flames out the back. I think people think that maybe there's like a fire that's going out of the back of the bullet.
Because that looks cool in Hollywood films.
In Hollywood films, they use it.
But the reality of the situation is what these are called, and they're oftentimes used at gun shows because they look cool.
So that people can watch them.
They're called tracer rounds, and they're phosphorus bullets that burn as they travel through the air so that you can see either to make something look cool or to see where you're shooting. And so, but as you pointed out, I think, Lee, when we were watching this, we were like, why are they lighting up? It was the last thing that you want to do if you're attacking an enemy
real firefight
is to announce where you're firing from. Like
with lit up bullets.
Why don't you also just wear like a glow in the dark balaclava and be like we using those fucking things that they use at the airport when they're bringing fucking planes in, like, they're over here, we're over here. Like, why the fuck?
Because if you fire in pitch black with these light up rounds, any enemy could just look where the lights are coming coming from and be like, I bet they're over there. So so anybody who knew anything about guns, and I actually posed this question before the video we were watching explained it. Anybody who knew would be like, there's no way this is Syria. There's no way they're firing at things that are just exploding left and right. It looks like Avengers, like the movie. Like
they're legit just shooting into fireballs.
Yeah, so this is idiots at a Kentucky gun show just blowing things up to blow things up because it looks cool. So
and then shooting at the shit they're blowing up.
So this then was revealed, and ABC tweeted out, "We have retracted the video and pulled down the video, blah, blah, blah." But they didn't say, oh, how the fuck did we put out a fucking news report claiming that a Kentucky gun show is Syria?
This is what they wrote. At ABC World News, tweeted out, correction in all caps. We've taken down video that aired on World News Tonight Sunday and Good Morning America this morning that appeared to be from the Syrian border immediately after questions were raised about its accuracy.
Right.
ABC News regrets the error.
But where do you get that
exactly
footage? Where does that come from?
Exactly. Who walks in and just hands the fucking, chief, like the chief of the news department, like, hey, I found this footage of Syria, and no one asks?
Right.
And then you watch it, and if you've done any war reporting ever in your life, you look at it and be like, those tracer rounds seem odd, but you know what? Whatever. Also, I don't think they have pine trees on the Syria-Turkey border, but also whatever.
And the thing that makes it even funnier is David Murr, who's hosting this thing, is like at least for years was their regular war reporter. So his like thing, like whenever they show ads for him, like ABC News, David Murr or whatever. And by the way, if I have his first name wrong, then I apologize because I've said it wrong many times. But
I wouldn't know.
I believe so. But all of their ads and everything for him are him like in a war zone with a vest on. He's always reporting from Afghanistan or Syria or somewhere. So the idea that this guy, if he watched this footage at all, didn't know, that seems a little odd.
Right.
Is like fucking ridiculous. But so this either means you have two options. Either ABC News is the most inept organization that has ever been created on the face of the earth, or they wanted to put in false footage of Syrian battle to make people think that this is a firefight as opposed to mostly people fleeing, still not good. And yes, some people have been executed, like they've executed politicians there, I believe. So this is not saying that it's all peaches and cream. It's fucking awful and disgusting any of this killing, because this killing wouldn't be happening without us having gone in there. So, it's completely repulsive. But the idea, you have two choices, either inept or they've decided we need to show some deadly footage going on here, or else America will not be properly propagandized.
Well, and that's the other thing is that, like, yes, this is not a good situation, but would our presence in Syria make this situation any better? And this is also the other point here, and this is, I'm pulling this from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. They recently released a report that says media alarmed by imaginary U.S. pullout from Syria. So here's the bottom line. Basically, the Pentagon statement on Syria said nothing to suggest that the U.S. would be withdrawing from the country. The fact of the matter is that we have perpetuated an 8-year-plus civil war in Syria. The idea that moving basically what this says 50 soldiers remaining in that section of Syria. The idea that pulling some 50 soldiers, mostly of whom were doing like sort of auxiliary roles like medics and things like that, support roles. The fact that the idea that would be stopping the slaughter in Syria, that we all of a sudden give a shit about, that we all of a sudden care about the civilians dying in Syria.
So I want to get to that point in 1 second, but you're absolutely right that this is not many soldiers.
But on top of that,
and did Trump do it ineptly and wrong and
just like he says everything?
Yes. Absolutely he did.
But the other thing is that we still have military bases in Syria that we're not closing.
Right.
So
And this is an invasion, illegal invasion, international
if we're talking
illegal
about,
invasion of Syria.
I mean, and this is how the media is talking about it. Oh my God, we're leaving Syria. We're leaving Syria to the, to the dregs of Islamist extremists that we fucking created, by the way, and
We'll
that
get
we
to-
have
we'll
that
get to
we
that.
have bolstered monetarily and in terms of weapons.
We'll
but,
get to that in a second as well.
But we the idea that
Footnote.
the idea that we're leaving Syria when we still have military bases open and operations going in Syria makes no fucking sense.
Right. And so here are multiple. You did a great job of summarizing various things that I'm now going to branch off of. So in terms of never showing, all of a sudden we care about civilian deaths, and this is I did a segment on Redacted Tonight this week, which highlights this idea that our media has never cared about all of the civilians who are killed or have their families or lives destroyed by our movements, our supporting of various military factions, our coups, our U.S.-backed coups, our economic war that we've done on countries. 40,000 have died in Venezuela from our economic sanctions in the past few years alone. Are they showing the babies dying in Venezuela from our economic war? Fuck no. Are they showing, except for like 2 reports, there was like 2 days where they cared about the Palestinian Great March of Return, but it's been going on for a year. People are being slaughtered by Israeli snipers that we helped fund. Obviously we back Israel, and are they showing those innocent civilians on a regular basis dying? Fuck no. Are they fucking Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, the victims of the warlords that we propped up in Libya that now run things over there? Are we showing those victims? Fuck no. They never care about civilians except for this moment in this particular instance, because it is the U.S. military ceding ground of a country we invaded.
Yeah, and even in Syria, wasn't it the corporate media that all of a sudden found Trump to be presidential when he actually finally bombed Syria? Yeah. So yeah, even when it's specifically Syrian civilians, we don't give a fuck.
Furthermore, in terms of Syrian civilians, we have crushing economic sanctions on Syria. No one ever talks about that because they only talk about the war aspect, the hot war aspect, as opposed to the kind of Cold War economic sanction aspect of it. But people are dying in Syria today because of lack of certain medications and things like that are from our economic sanctions. So where is the media's concern, their empathy, their fucking crocodile tears for those people that are dying because of us? Non-existent.
Exactly. Yeah. So and of course we're not, and I'm repeating this because it bears repeating, we're not leaving Syria. We have not left Syria. We being the U.S. military has not left. And you've brought this up too, Lee, that the fact of the matter is we might have moved some like dozens of troops in northern Syria, but our goal has not been completed, which is to basically like destabilize the region to the point that we can move it around like pawns on a chessboard. And that hasn't been completed because Assad is still in power. And as long as we're not in power in that entire region, mission not accomplished.
Right. But we've accomplished a lot of it by simply crushing that country and tearing it apart. So, we're about halfway done.
But the game continues because this is the point. It's just like after the Iran deal was signed, way back when, remember? When like that was still something that could potentially happen. Lockheed Martin's CEO, I can't remember her name.
Marilyn Houston.
Oh, wow, you're good.
Is that right?
God, I'm terrible with names, but good call. Marilyn Houston basically as soon before the ink was even dry, got on the phone with shareholders of Lockheed Martin and said, "Don't worry, everyone. I know that you might be concerned, but there will be instability in that region for a long time to come.
Right.
We're going to be fine."
Right.
Basically saying,
this is
fuck
an open,
peace.
this is open
Fuck
fucking investor
peace.
call.
We are going to be perpetuating war in that region for a really long time, so don't worry about whatever this little president's doing. We owned this.
Dude, those
we
calls,
own the empire, and you're going to be fine.
when those calls are leaked out by, because those are basically calls meant for the like biggest investors in Lockheed Martin, and when they leak out, they are the most repulsive thing ever. Literally, they use the term growth, right? We see it as a real growth area. Growth meaning war. Growth meaning death. Like, it is so repulsive. But I wanted to get back to the other thing I wanted to branch off on. You mentioned, and I'm almost certainly talking about this on Redacted tonight, so if you're worried about double coverage, fast forward for 3 minutes.
But don't, because this is off the cuff, folks.
This is
raw and
raw,
real.
uncensored. This is the green room with no pants on.
And without the coat and the fancy lights.
The coat and the fancy
and with
lights.
the dead crow.
All right, I'll have to admit it. I have a dead crow on my shoulder right now. I do always wear one for the podcast. But you mentioned that the people that Turkey, the jihadist extremists that the militias that Turkey is sending into Syria to be basically the vanguard to eliminate any Kurdish fight that is going on there, and execute politicians, and in this brutal, disgusting war that continues to go on, and Turkey's invasion. The Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal over the Gray Zone project, which you guys should check out that site. You should put it on all your lists of sites to regularly read. Did some research, and the U.S. has helped fund and sometimes arm 21 of the 28 extremist militias Turkey is using to send into Syria. So basically, before these militias were working for Turkey, they were working for us in a way to fight Assad. So we helped create, train them, showed them how to shoot, showed them how to deal with the rigors of war, how war works, and how to defeat people and kill people. We showed them and helped them do that. 21 of 28 extremist militias, and now Turkey is using these trained killers to send into Kurd country. Like, it's fucking repulsive. So we did this to ourselves. Or to the people we're claiming to care about right now. And the mainstream media will never mention this fact. It cannot be mentioned. It is purged from any outlet except alternative investigative journalists like the Gray Zone Project. And by the way, for those of you who hadn't heard of it, the Gray Zone Project and are thinking like, I don't know about these blogs, Max Blumenthal is a New York Times bestselling author, and I really think you should check it out.
Well, yeah, and of course, this really ties into the issue of media literacy and the need for us to look beyond the corporate media for the truth that lies behind it, because anything that you get from corporate media is not going to be legit, whether it be climate change or labor rights or fucking war, like whatever it is, you are not going to get the information that you need to get. So we have to be more diligent. And that goes for people like Lee and I that are also, media creators. We have to be diligent about our media literacy, but you guys do as well. So, I mean, keep digging and find the sources that actually dig to the roots of the issue and have legitimate proof to back up their headlines and their stories.
I know we've actually gone with multiple episodes. We went through a bunch of sources everyone should check out, but why don't you give 2 or 3 of your favorites real quick?
So
for new listeners.
So we do have, and this is a kind of an ongoing project, but I think the Gray Zone that you mentioned is really powerful. I think also another one for foreign policy and issues like that is Mint Press News.
Yeah.
Truth Out does good work as well. Disclaimer: Lee writes for them.
Truth Dig.
I'm sorry, Truth Dig. My bad.
Truth Out is not bad. Truth Out sometimes will play the Democrats' line, but Truth Out's pretty good. But Truth Dig also, yeah.
Popular Resistance is a phenomenal place where you can not only get information on actual news, but you can also they have an activist calendar that shows some, not all, of course, but some of the issues that are happening around the world.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Popular Resistance. I've signed up to their newsletter, and it's probably where I get about half of all redacted stories. So that's Popular
Resistance. The magician
Resistance.
shares his secrets.
I know. PopularResistance.org is very good for daily kind of story updates. And there's also a TV show called Act Out. I think everyone should check out.
Really? What's that all about?
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. It's this
shucks.
it's this awesome woman who covers the news and covers activist fights that are ongoing.
You know what? I try.
Let's jump down to Tatiana Jefferson.
Okay.
About that?
So, and I covered this, and just one more little footnote, because what you mentioned about Truth Out is that none of these outlets are perfect. That includes me, although I try.
Stop with your heresy. Yours is perfect.
None of these outlets are perfect, and so when you read something on any of these outlets, or you watch something on the show, I want you to trust me, obviously, because I do work really hard to make sure that I'm bringing you information that is legit. A lot of it happens to be stuff that I've seen myself. However, that doesn't mean that you should just accept everything that you read from alternative media. So I think that, like, the important thing is that media literacy is not like, oh, I'm done now, I've found my outlets. No, it's an ongoing fight. It's an ongoing, because we see that this happens. For instance, like Democracy Now! Keeps like butt scooting towards like.
Can we, if you're gonna bring it up, can we have a moment for the death of Democracy Now?
Can we have a moment of silence?
Fucking Christ, man. Democracy Now! Helped wake me up. I'm sure there's others listening right now who feel the same way. When I first saw Amy Goodman speaking, it was during the Bush administration, and I was like, oh my God, there's people out there that aren't just saying like, oh, I don't think there's weapons of mass destruction. They're saying this guy is a war criminal, and we have blood on our hands. And the way she was talking about it was in a way I hadn't heard many people talk about it. And so I look up Democracy Now! And I'm like, holy shit, there's a whole world out there of people that get it, that are reporting the real news. And so I follow Democracy Now! I thought they were great, and they continue to be good on stories here and there. They're not like a pile of shit like a MSNBC or something, but they went through a period, and I think, to get an inside scoop on this, Aaron Mate used to be a producer there, and he has called them out on Twitter for this same stuff. They've kind of shifted to this time where they're just quoting the White Helmets on every episode, even though the White Helmets have been proven to be kind of a Western media, originally started by a British military agent that used to be for the British Army, or the British Intelligence Service. And they're, it doesn't mean they've never saved anyone, where the guys wearing white helmets, but it means most of what they're doing is helping to create a propaganda war to further the U.S. aims and the British aims in Syria. And yet Democracy Now! Is quoting them all the time, and I don't know. There's been several things like that where you're like, how the fuck? Or they'll have someone on to talk about Russiagate who it just completely has their head up their ass. Some New York Times writer or something that's just made up a bunch of shit, and they don't have on a legitimate person to argue against them. Like,
yeah. So all that to say,
sorry to go out on a rant there.
No, it's fine. All that to say that media literacy is kind of like the fight for justice. It's ongoing. You don't ever get to say like, oh, I'm done with that, check that box. It's an ongoing issue, and we have to continuously work on it. And you should always be questioning what you read and what you see. Don't accept anything at face value. So,
all right, let's get to the story.
Okay, so Tatiana Jefferson was a woman who was murdered by police, and this is something that I covered on Loud and Clear.
And it's actually gotten, part of the reason we're talking about this is it actually has gotten a lot of mainstream media coverage that this black woman was murdered in her own home, which apparently, if you're a black person and you get murdered by police for no reason outside of your own home, then it's not a story. But at least this one is a story.
So because, not that any of the other ones aren't absolutely fucking absurd, but what happened was that this was Fort Worth, Texas. Her door was open, presumably to let some air in, like the cross breeze idea.
Beacon that is Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas. And a concerned neighbor, and I'll get back to this because I think this is like a really important piece that needs to be discussed. a concerned neighbor had called the police for a wellness check. And if you're not familiar with what a wellness check is, it means that you call the non-emergency number. So you don't call 911, you call like the local dispatch or whatever, and you say like, hey, I'm a little bit concerned. It's not an emergency, but I'd like somebody to come check it out. And that's what's called a quote unquote wellness check. And it means that you make sure that there's not a crime being committed. You don't fucking come in with the SWAT team. You just come in and like you knock on the door. However, the SWAT team showed up. And yes, Lee, you wanted to interject?
Well, I was just going to say, we should have a fucking number that is not police at all.
Well, this is what I was going to get into.
Oh, okay, sorry. I wasn't sure.
Wait. Patience. So what happened?
Not now, kiddo.
Now's not the time. So what happened is the SWAT team showed up and to quote unquote do a wellness check and rushed in and did not announce the police officer that shot her, Tatiana, did not announce himself as a police officer and proceeded to shoot her.
Well, yeah, there was not even a moment of get out on the ground, put your hands up, just walked in and shot her. Like,
yeah, because again, the door was open. So, and this, I mean, the good news here is that this cop has been charged. We don't know what's going to happen.
And they resigned.
But and of course, my point, me being the fucking Debbie Downer of the situation, is like, this does not address the systemic problems that create the cops that do this. And I know that you've...
Just bad apples. Just a few bad apples.
You've
I'm sick
covered
of you
this.
acting like it's systemic.
You've covered this, Lee, as well, that cops typically get something like 8 hours of de-escalation training.
The average across the United States is 8 hours of de-escalation training.
And 40 plus hours on how to shoot a gun. So
a lot more time spent on how
more
to shoot things rather than how not to shoot things.
And this is why. So even if the neighbor thought that there was a possibly a crime being committed, there needs to be an alternative to calling the cops. It's because when you call the cops, you are basically saying, I want a violent militant force. Basically, think of it as calling the army. Whenever you reach for the phone, ask yourself if you want to call the army. And I'm not being hyperbolic here, because a lot of folks that come from the armed forces go straight into the police and use the same weaponry that they used in fucking Afghanistan and Iraq, thanks to the 1033 program that funnels all of that weaponry into the fucking police.
They can't get bayonets now, though. Obama stopped the bayonets. He did. Obama stepped up to the plate and he said, God damn it, no more bayonets.
But now you can actually get the bayonets because Trump overturned that. But anyway, so bayonets are on their...
Wait, bayonets are good?
Bayonets are good.
I gotta go.
But so, like, literally think of it that way. That's not hyperbole. This is legit. And so, really, whenever you reach for the phone, and this is not just 911, this is for a quote-unquote wellness check. Whenever you reach for the phone to call any branch of the fucking law enforcement, think to yourself, do I want to call in the fucking military?
Except for the guy that looks for overdue library books. You can call him. But
I thought that was just the homeless guy that lived around the corner.
Oh, no, I think there's a detective. He doesn't have a gun, though.
How do you know?
I hope he doesn't have a gun. No, I'm just agreeing with what you're saying, and I have a joke in my, well, I didn't mean to promote it, but in my comedy special, which you can get at LeeCamComedySpecial.com.
I thought we didn't promote things, Lee.
LeeCamComedySpecial.com. No, I have a joke in that special that's like, it's calling a guy with a gun to deal with like your neighbors who are too loud, or even if they, told you to go fuck yourself and, threatened you or some shit. Calling guys with guns that know nothing about the situation to come and deal with it is a catastrophe. It's best case scenario, they don't do anything. Worst case scenario, they come in and kill someone. And even if it's not you they've killed, do you want that on your conscience? Do you want to be like, yeah, that guy told me to go fuck myself. Now he's dead. All right. Yay me. No, it's a terrifying situation. And recently we had a bunch of people over here for a get-together, and so we were all talking loudly, and our neighbors called the cops. So cops just show up at our front door of our apartment because it's a little loud. And my line, like that literally happened to us. And my line in my stand-up act is that's like calling a guy with a grenade launcher and a flamethrower because there's a slight smell of ass coming from next door. Like, there's no reason to get guys with guns involved. And it's just, it's fucked up to do that because what can go wrong is massive.
Yeah, and obviously what does go wrong, and this is obviously this is predominantly black folks, brown folks, indigenous folks, absolutely, folks with mental health problems. This is because they don't act right, quote unquote, right? And so the cops get scared and then they shoot them. But obviously, and this is the other aspect of this story, which is, and this is just one story, but it kind of speaks to so many stories that we've seen. There's no right way to act if imagine you're just hanging out in your house, and she was with her nephew at the time. You're just hanging out in your house and your door is open and somebody walks in and shoots you. What could you possibly do to act right around the cops? So the people that say like, oh, if you just been polite, or if you would just send like, oh, hi, officer, like da-da-da-da-da. No, this isn't about acting right in the face of authority. This is about being black. This is about being black and existing.
Yeah,
which is why
there's no way to act right.
There's no way to act right. And of course, like I said, it's predominantly black and brown folks and folks with mental health issues. But understand that these are kind of the canaries in the coal mines. And what's going to happen more and more is you're going to see more and more folks subjected to this kind of violence. Right. You're already seeing it. Right. I don't know any of my friends who are white and activists who haven't been tear gassed. Many of them have been subjected to rubber bullets and shit like that. This is the reality of the situation. And so we have to recognize that there's no correct way to avoid this kind of violence. The only way to avoid it is to push back and to say this is not okay, and that we have to stand up and say that we demand police accountability. We demand removing cops from our streets. We demand ultimately the abolition of police and the abolition of prisons, the abolition of the prison industrial complex that criminalizes people for their very existence, their identities of being black and brown and trans and non-binary. Like this is the stance that we have to take, and not just say we need to be more docile and we need to fall in line.
And this is what I talk about shifting the debate, which everything you just said is brilliant. And rather than arguing about whether this particular cop went too far or shouldn't have fired, that debate is obvious. But if you're even having that debate, you're missing the deeper issues, which is most of what you're getting to. And even if you aren't a full police abolitionist, let's just begin with and even this is shifting the debate, the idea that most of what our cops do should not be jobs for police. Police should not be called because the music's too loud. They should not be called because someone is behaving odd in your neighborhood and, they just shat in the fountain out front. They should not be called because someone's speeding. They should not be called because a car is parked in your spot. All of these things should be for either the community to deal with, so you get together and you discuss these things in a community setting, or at the very least, or even larger than that, we could have some sort of hotline for dealing with people with mental health. Hey, there's a guy shitting in my fountain. Dealing with cars. Hey, car person, come and deal with this car that's parked in my spot. And guess what? The car person that you call doesn't have a gun. Because there's no reason for car people to have guns. So each of these things, most of what our police do should not be police jobs. And the reason they are police jobs is because the police at their heart, for most of the reason they exist is to keep the class structure of America in place and to perpetrate the highly illegal drug war, which is a war on our own people. And so that is the reason that cops
serve and protect the elite.
That is the reason, serve and protect the elite, and that is the reason that cops have so many jobs that should not be police jobs. They should not be jobs for guys with guns.
Amen.
I like to end on an amen.
So real quick, just with regards to next week, please don't forget about me, folks.
It's funny. I was going to say, if you want to turn it off next week because it's going to be only me, then I understand. I still love you.
And I'm over here like, don't forget me.
Don't forget me. I'm still here. I'm still alive. No, unfortunately, Eleanor cannot join us next week, but I will be here and I will be reporting on the news, and then she will be back.
I'll come back, I hope.
Also, I want to give you some quick notes here. We're going over to patreon.com/Common Censored to do a little extra content over there. Please check out artkillingapathy.com. That's where you can get all of Eleanor's content. She also writes articles for various outlets that you should absolutely be reading. YouTube.com/Moment of Clarity Show is my other YouTube channel where I put up behind-the-scenes footage. I put up web-exclusive content. If you're not at youtube.com/Moment of Clarity Show, then you are a moron. And I'm not good at selling stuff. Please review us on iTunes. If you aren't signed up to our email list, you can text the word censored, CENSORED, to 345-345. Get out your phone right now. It's completely free if you're in America. It doesn't work if you're not in America. So I guess it's free outside of America too. It just won't work. Text the word censored to 345-345. And that'll get you signed up to our email list. Sound good?
All right. Sounds good. And any ideas or thoughts that you have on topics you want to hear, Common Censored at protonmail.com. And until not next week, but the week after.
Well, I'll be there next week.
I know. I'll be up in the mountains of West Virginia, or what's left of the mountains, thanks to mountaintop removal. That's a different story.
Hold on, when they remove the mountaintop, do they put it somewhere else we can go look at them? Is there somewhere else that's gaining mountaintops?
It's not like a slice and display type situation.
Oh, no? It's not like the cakes in the display cases?
Sorry.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
More on that later, folks. Until next time, act out.
Keep fighting.